Oh,
I think
cool.
we just started.
Yeah, I think we just started as well. Yeah, it's really nice to see you, dude. I suppose I should begin by introducing you for the purposes of this recording. So, yeah, welcome to Future Self Dreaming for anybody watching. And this is Ronald Holt. My relationship with Ronald started, I guess, about 17 years ago or something, when I attended the advanced trainings for the Flower of Life facilitator training, known as the Seed of Life and 1 and Seed of Life 2. And Ron at that stage was the director with his partner Lyssa for the Flower of Life, and you organised all the facilitator training and whatnot. And you know, is it the equinox in your part of the world at the moment, right? Today?
Yes, actually, I think it was earlier in the day. It was the equinox. So
Yeah.
happy equinox.
Yeah. Well, you know, I couldn't think of anybody who I would prefer to interview for this purpose more than you, firstly, and that it be on the equinox. And, you know, I was considering before we spoke about, you know, I guess my intent and purpose for creating this project called Future Self Dreaming. And it's sort of revealed itself over a period of time, and it's all about connecting with the higher self. And in terms of that, you know, I couldn't have thought of anybody better to speak to about that subject. And I wanted to ask a series of questions to everybody that I interviewed, which was around what the higher self, that concept, means to them, what your experience of it is, and how it informs like the work that you bring into the world.
Well, the mystery is revealing itself. I had no idea what you wanted to talk about, although I did see several of your episodes, and I really enjoyed them. So I'm looking forward to what questions you do have, and it looks like you started off with a good one.
I was thinking, actually, you know, there was a few good quotes that I was going to read that you had written over the years. And, you know, one of them, a short paragraph, states that the higher self is an integral and intimate aspect of ourselves that remains aware of and actively interacts with the whole of our being and our existence on the many planes or possibilities of life. And one definition of the higher self can be the part of ourselves that remains aware of our fragmented aspects and our wholeness simultaneously. You know, that was a really beautiful quote. And I know that you've got others on your website with the work that you're doing now with quantum navigating. And it's all related to that theme, isn't it?
Well, ironically, yes, and I'm really surprised that having written that so long ago, that it's so right in tune with where all of my journey has taken me, and which has led into the quantum navigation, and that still holds very much true. The higher self being the one that's the active portion of our consciousness. There's a big difference between the history, identity, and personality, which is all done, all created as a physical being and as a quotient of being unconscious. And so our history, leading to our identity and our personality, leads us to create a persona and a belief system of ourself, and our higher self is responsible for including that, the awareness that we hold, but disassembling it at the rate that we can accept it to expose a much greater aspect of ourself. And so it will continue to chew away at the ball of yarn that we've entangled ourselves in and slowly help us move back into seeing ourselves completely differently from what the history, personality, and identity designed us while we were unconscious. and returns us back to a conscious state. So we have higher selves upon higher selves, always navigating us to a point that we can accept and see ourselves in a much greater form.
Beautiful. Yeah, I don't know if you can hear it, but we did pause for a little while there before the interview because of the whippersnippering going on, but there is a lawnmower going on outside, so hopefully it won't be too distracting for anybody that's watching this. But yeah, that's a
sounds okay on this side.
Cool. Or maybe it's some frequency that needs to be transmitted for our talk.
Reminds me of a lot of our contact sessions with Lyssa. There would always be something like this that we had to step around consciously.
Definitely. You know, I just on that topic, you know, of the contact sessions, I don't know whether it's too early to get into that, but you know, one of my presentations that I gave on YouTube recently that you probably watched was about, you know, the contact work that we did in these advanced trainings, you know, and in terms of what you were talking about then, about the deprogramming of our conditioned identity and, you know, awakening to a greater aspect of ourselves. That particular course, you know, was a very significant nexus point in my own development and evolution because you know, I was obviously ready for, you know, a fairly significant awakening and things to occur that were outside of my belief systems or realms of possibility at the time, you know, and you were an integral part in that, you know. Yeah, so, I mean, the contact work, as far as I understood it, sort of was developed by you and Lyssa and stemmed from like work with SETI originally. Was that where it came from?
Yes, that particular work, the contact vernacular, that area is specifically my wife's work. So Lyssa Royal Holt, and she's got several books on that material. However, her material and my material kind of dovetailed, and it really made a lot of sense. And I was part of the early contact team. And while we were out in the field making contact, some of the germinating ideas about contact were brought, and I got to experience. As an example, the Pleiadians came on one experience, and they helping to show us the models of behaviors, especially unconscious behaviors that we employ, came up with the sugar syndrome, and that is, although Lyssa had came up with the material on is that the contact, your signature behavior.
Yes.
And I really appreciated what you were able to really give a great rundown of that early material. So we were, both Lyssa and I were really surprised at how much you retained of that information. But she came up with the signature behaviors, what to watch for when the paradigm is rife with much more frequency, the quantum frequency. There's an overlap between our reality and their reality, and it's heightened for us. And consequentially, in that heightened state, all of a sudden, it also magnifies a lot of our unconscious behaviors. And so signature behavior was brought out on that. However, sugar syndrome is one of those behaviors that could be classified in signature behavior. And sugar syndrome, as the Pleiadians, we were all in a circle and we were making contact when these three Pleiadians came into the circle, and they said, when you have a group of people together, you are bringing in, each one of you is responsible for bringing in quite a electromagnetic, a variant of the electromagnetic spectrum. And so when you have a whole group together, you have much more of the electromagnetic spectrum possible. And this is good because we operate outside of your normal spectrum of frequencies. And so when you're grouped together, it makes it possible for us to envelope with your frequency. And so when we come, we monitor that especially. And we like to magnify the energetics in a group setting and see how you handle it. Now, this is where sugar syndrome comes in, because if you're unconscious of your behaviorisms, and a lot of that is your signature behavior, well, one of the things that can happen is each individual is prone to their own unique set of signature behaviors. And so some people may want to talk real fast. Some people may want to run around a little bit afraid and trying to seek security. Other people may want to sleep and so on. But sugar syndrome is some people get so active and excited that they'll pick up the, we commonly have contact devices like flashlights, high beam flashlights. So some people will get on those and start flashing anything in the sky that's moving in order to dissipate the energy, or they'll talk, or they'll try to create some kind of side attention or side effect. Anyway, they're burning off that energy. Rather than if you took the frequency of the group, held that unified field, monitored the magnification of the energies, and keep inviting yourself into greater depths of surrender, then what happens, and that brings you into the unknown, but through the process of the heart engaged with all the other chakras, it starts to solidify the centeredness, and you can hold a greater amount of not only the frequency, but the magnification of the energy in those frequencies. So if you do that, and we monitor how you're doing, you will notice that we stair-step the energy. So you'll feel the energy ramp up, and if you stay centered, keep with the group energy, just smile, and keep going with the energy, then we'll plateau it. And then we're going to rise it again in a matter of a few minutes, maybe 5-10 minutes. We'll start ramping up it again. And depending on how you handle it, that's when the envelope starts to open. And that's when all these amazing experiences start to happen. We, as they said, we are trying to navigate the overlap of the quantum field and the magnification of the quantum. As you know, quantum is so much of the electromagnetic spectrum that we are not familiar with working with while we're in the beta, the normal everyday 3D consciousness frequency.
Yeah. I when I was reflecting on the experiences that I had in that training that I've spoken about in that previous YouTube presentation, and extreme non-ordinary reality experiences where another being touched me as physically as anybody else doing that, and it's very, very hard for my mind to come to grips with afterwards. But I remember when reflecting upon the experience that it felt very normal. It felt, and it was from, we were in such a held space of love and interconnectedness. We'd done a lot of that group work, that you're renowned for, of clearing the heart firstly. And it was like child's play. It was like, a very normal experience. And it was only afterwards when the mind started to kick in and go, oh, hey, some really strange stuff just happened then, you create a story or some fear or something around it,
That's it. The ego likes to create a story and put it in its own context so that it's safe within the kingdom. We got this. control of this.
Yeah. I
um,
I guess
well,
another well
uh,
another beautiful component of it for me was just your your being and your sense of humor. And my original Flower of Life trainer, Patricia Athena, described you as the walking heart chakra before I had ever met you, and that was definitely my experience of you, and just your sense of humor about these things. I mean, I can tend to take myself quite seriously, and the ego loves to do that. But when you laugh, that sense of self is no longer there temporarily, and that's been my experience as well. In these states of joy and whatnot, we tap into a much larger, expanded sense of ourselves.
yeah, that's really the ordinary, extraordinary, the duality, the paradox. And as we get more comfortable with that, um, and like I said earlier, um, our history, identity, and personality all comes from such a structured state. And ironically, a lot of that structured state comes from a lot of painful and traumatic experiences. And the painful and traumatic experiences as a child tends to quash the openness that the child had, the natural openness and connectiveness to all things, and the natural mystery and willingness to adventure, and instead moves them from the heart into the head, where logic and reason, there's no pain in the mental. And then it comes later on in life that we've got to use all that experience to move back and start to open back up the heart and the emotional area. But way back, I think thousands of years ago, if we look at the Kali Yuga, the states of the yugas, and in the last 13,000 years, before the end of the last 13,000 years, there was an era where we lived in a much more integrated state. And in that integrated state, there was a great sharing of cultures, not only cultures of this earth, but cultures of all the planets. And at that time, while we were sharing and while we were in a much more integrated self, we saw each other as ourself. I mean, we felt ourself in the other. It was so close and so connected that we felt the missing pieces were all around us, living in that unity of mind and consciousness and stuff. And of course, as the end of that cycle moved us into deeper separation, deeper disconnection, of course, we went into deeper fear and deeper pain and trauma and so on. But now, as we're coming back around, we're starting to feel and remember and enjoy the connection, not only with other cultures and other like-minded beings who have been through hell, and I've listened to your stories and I had no idea you went through so much trauma, but I can appreciate it because it's that experience that renders the heart completely open and helps you to see the unity in the other being. Well, we're coming quickly to a time when we're realizing that these beings on these other thresholds of life, on these other planets that are just right here, living in the quantum too, they're part of the magnificence of the rainbow of connection that we have with all of creation. Because ironically, if you look at the quantum navigation material, you can see each of us sits at the very center of creation, and we're both completely open, like a balloon, twisted at the center. Part of us is part of the complete conscious, and part of us is part of the unconscious, and our heart sits in the middle no matter where we are. So the illusion of the body crowds the mind and clouds it in the separation consciousness. So it makes it feel like these are other beings with other agendas, and they're not on the same wavelength. But as your heart opens and your mind opens to back to this frequency, all of a sudden they start coming back and they fill in the missing pieces. And we feel much more alive when we allow that full quantum electromagnetic spectrum to exist inside of, the heart.
Yeah, well, that was it was a subject area that I wanted to touch on with you, because I know that like a lot of your work focuses on some of the elements that you just mentioned there, which was, getting in touch with the child, the inner child, and, trauma resolution, and, clearing the heart. I know in the trainings that we did, there was a lot of, Kundalini activation. A lot of that had stemmed from your previous Taoist training, and so we were using a lot of that Kundalini to clear that diamond within the heart. Yeah, I mean, do you want to speak to any of that, about the importance of all of those and the integration of them?
Yeah, okay. That's really a fascinating subject for me, because I always wanted to know why. So for me, why questions were really important. Why do we have to go through all this stuff? Yeah. So anyway, I didn't go through a lot of academic training. I went through a lot of experiential and a lot of experiential training. And so bridging a lot of, let's say, the sacred geometry, the Hindu training, the yoga, the Taoist yoga, and other trainings. I'm fascinated with looking at how the fractalization, the fracturing of the unity happened. And so from, we got to kind of follow a metaphoric story in order to try to encapsulate and capture or grok the idea here of the importance of the inner child work, and more specifically, the fracture lines, the 7 roots of unconsciousness that fractured the holism. And when we look at the unity of consciousness, the unity of consciousness is paradoxical. And it's a collection of infinite paradox. So if you could imagine infinite paradox being like yin and yang, well, consciousness is like that infinite collection of paradox. And when yin realizes that yang is its home, and yang realizes yin is its home, hence the small dot in either of the 2 sides, then a bridge is made, because compassionate appreciation, it forms the bridge. Compassionate appreciation and understanding forms the bridge for the duality to come home. And so if we are a collection, an infinite collection of paradox, then we have infinite dualities. And the only place for those dualities to come home is within each other. So when yin is unconscious of yang, then they compete. They compete for dominance and control. So they constantly fight each other. Meanwhile, they don't realize they're tied to each other magnetically. And so as yin emanates a magnetic energy, just as yang does to its opposite, and that energy is like 2 horseshoe magnets. When they're unconscious, they repel each other. When they're conscious, they attract each other. So compassionate appreciation and understanding is what turns the magnets from unconsciousness to consciousness. And so they magnetically are compulsed to each other. Now, because a horseshoe magnet is material, the two magnets will stick together when they're magnetically attracted and conscious, right? But if yin were to merge with yang, it disappears. So there is no manifestation, no physical manifestation, if consciousness is aware. But if it goes to sleep, then it's forced apart. So here in this state of what we could call the awakened, there's a word in Hindu, ancient Hindu, ancient Sanskrit. It can be interpreted as Purusha. Purusha is consciousness, and it's filled with dualities. But those dualities are compassionately appreciative of each other, so there's no need to manifest. But metaphorically, the consciousness made a decision. I wonder what it would be like not to know myself. And so in that moment, it created a space within consciousness where, of course, it's conscious, so it went to sleep. So inside of the sleep area is the only place for manifestation. All right, now, in sacred geometry, we have a metaphoric dawn. And that dawn is of the first ray of light that comes over the horizon. And it's like a very pinpoint of light if it's up on a wall. So that first ray of light is very much like the Purusha entering the void. Now, that ray of light is kind of phallic. Okay, but we all know that just entering the void or the womb, that's not creation. That's not insemination. So there is another aspect of Purusha that inseminated the void. And so at the moment of insemination, it gave its life force energy into all fractals of creation. So when this light entered into the void, the void is very much like a crystalline sphere. Now, if you put the sphere at a distance from you, you can see that the sphere reflects everything around it, but upside down. So this is kind of like the void. It's reflecting Purusha, but it went unconscious. Okay? So when the ray of light goes in, yeah, there's a ray, but when it inseminated, that's the moment it fractured the crystal. So when it fractured the crystal, we got all the fractals. We got you and I, and we've got all the billions of life and creation. So at this insemination, this is where the fractalization took place.
Yeah, I like that. The reference that you made to paradox before, because there's a quote that I really like. I can't remember who said it. I'll find it somewhere later. But the quote basically says that now we've met with the paradox, we have some hope of progressing, and it's it's definitely, well, it's a state of mind that I got more and more comfortable with through interacting with sacred geometry, because through communing with that, you start to visually see these paradoxes, you know, and
yes.
and also for many people that have used psychedelics and taken magic mushrooms, you quickly enter into that state of consciousness, you know, this non-dual state, where everything becomes very paradoxical as well. So it's again, it's that mind for me that's like when it's caught in duality and it's conflicting and trying to control one side or the other rather than accepting the paradox, you know.
Yes. Yeah. So when the fractalization took place, remember there's a split. There's an unconscious from Purusha. There's a conscious, but inside of Purusha, since consciousness is everywhere, and there's nowhere that it cannot be, so a portion inside of it went unconscious. So we can use this as the metaphor of a balloon. So if you take a balloon and twist it in opposite directions, right at the center point, one half is the awakened and the other half is the unconscious. So even in the unconscious, there's two aspects, and we can say that's yin. So yin, we have the primal unconscious, which only is seeking to the continuity of life in the unconscious state. But then you have a second feminine characteristic, which is that which just creates the form so that the consciousness can inhabit a form, and then it nurtures that. So that's a very pristine or a very benign consciousness. It's a very pure consciousness. It just wants to nurture and give form to formlessness, whereas the primal unconscious, and this the very first aspect, this is like the black lilith. For those of you who study some of the ancient texts. So anyway, it all comes back to that one. So we were talking about paradox. So Purusha, and you have the balloon, the twisting of the balloon. So the opposite end, the part that went unconscious, it's still Purusha. It's just a portion that went unconscious. And this really helped me understand the necessity for the internal marriage of the dualities. We keep seeking to replace unwanted aspects of our consciousness and our emotions, or even our physicality, with something out there that's more pure. And that's not what it's about. It's about really seeing the purity of the duality within and how duality ends when the two have compassionate appreciation and understanding for each other. Then they can come home and they're integrated rather than always causing drama by being so separated and split from us. Our splits, all our splits, go back to 7 original unconscious roots. And if we can see that, then we can understand the pain, shame, blame, fear, guilt, grief, anger, and rage.
Beautiful.
And so it's the unconsciousness that caused it's the unconsciousness marrying with the insemination of Great Spirit into all of the fractals that we see in reality, all coming from the one. So inherently then, each culture and each different extraterrestrial civilization is only us, because there's only the one.
Yeah, well, it was something, just speaking to that extraterrestrial topic again, like when I had that encounter, when we did the Seed of Life 1 training, and, as I came to integrate that experience, I realized that being that seemed like something external to me was me, that it was what, what I would refer to as my future self dreaming, and
Yes.
I
Yeah.
think, we've spoken about this concept before, I think, but it's something in the next presentation that I'm about to release that it hit me like a ton of bricks falling on me several years later when I was facilitating one of the Flower of Life courses, that I'd had this experience not long after learning the Merkaba meditation, where my head had tilted back into this position, and then of course synchronicity. The next day I was on some website, stumbled across some of Dan Winter's work and discovered this whole nature of the 32-degree tilt of the head and Kundalini rising and, going past the Kunda buffer at the occiput at the base of the skull and awakening the third eye, the pineal gland. And in that encounter that I had during our training, I had this experience of being bilocated for 8 or 9 hours during the night. But it didn't occur to me until some years later, telling this story about the 32-degree tilt and then what had happened during that workshop, that the being had come around, put its hands on this pillow behind my head. My head had tilted back into that position, and all of the energy that we had been building during that meditation practice had, moved through my body, gone fractal, and and had this extreme experience of oneness and unity for the next 8 hours. And then I came back and my mind completely freaked out, and I thought I was going mad until I ran into you and Lyssa, and you were sort of laughing and grinning at me, and I was like, oh, that must be normal.
Yeah, I think you remembered and you quoted it in your last segment that we said you must be a
The young ones or something. You young ones
yeah,
are.
the young ones are always jumping ahead.
That's right. Yeah. 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 Those that have no idea what they're doing. If I had have had any idea what the work was that we were going to be doing, I may have had a different experience. Sometimes I think that's the beauty of learning via experience. Like a lot of the time we want to know what we're going to experience rather than just having the experience and staying present with what it is that we encounter in that experience.
Yes, sure. When you're ready for those kinds, but it does help that you're in a group of individuals that are also at that same readiness point for these types of things to happen. So
Yes. Obviously, our meeting, all came together synchronistically through our love affair with sacred geometry. And, you, as I mentioned at the beginning of this talk, you're probably most well known for being the director of the Flower of Life research from 97 to 2013. And, I have said to people during my own journey, that as much as I appreciate everything that Drumvello brought to light with that whole body of work with the Flower of Life, that in some ways I wish that you and Lyssa had have been the figurehead of that work, because you did such a profound job of, creating this facilitator training and amazing experiences that all of us had, and then went on to facilitate workshops to thousands and thousands of people around the world. And I'm wondering, how much of sacred geometry is still informing your own work currently, and how you've progressed from that.
oh, wow. Well, good question. Just recently, I did some work for Japan, and during the summer, they had experienced a number of natural disasters. There was lots of rain, there was flooding, there was landslides, and so on. And so they asked if 4 different teachers, I got asked to be one of them, to if there was anything that we could do to assist. And I said, yeah, I think so. And when I went into, I told him I had to go into meditation and see if there's anything that you can do, because you just don't, show up on the scene and start demanding nature to your will, you know, abide by my will. No, it doesn't work that way. So anyway, I went in and asked, and I was surprised because the golden dragon appeared. And I've had a number of encounters with the golden dragon over my lifespan and my interactions with Japan. And sure enough, it showed me the sacred geometry power spots, but also chakra points on Japan that were needed to be worked with. And so this led to the Japanese asking me for putting on a workshop. So I did like a 2-hour webinar, and it incorporated some of the sacred geometry, which it's evolved to helping one see. For me, it's helped me to see how deeply interconnected we are with everything. And as I was trying to explain earlier, that we sit in the center of all creation, though we are confused by the body, and we think the body is the house for our consciousness, but it's not. And so the dragons and the sacred geometry helped me to really see this on a deeper level.
I remember.
So I gave a course on that and tried to evolve the understanding of where dragons come from, because dragons are high levels of collective consciousness. They led us into the manifested reality. And now that many of us are waking up and we're starting to remember and reactivate who and what we really are, they're leading back into the nothingness.
Yeah,
so it's reappearing.
Yeah, beautiful. You know, I remember, you know, you mentioning dragons when we did the Seed of Life 2 training, and we were doing a lot of qigong, and you had, you know, talked about that state of no mind that you can access. That I was standing there in that horse stance position, and just had a big dragon sort of come down next to me and open its eye. And of course, for me, my ego is so strong that I just was dismissing these visions that I was having. You know, oh yeah, that's some crazy shit. I'm just seeing a dragon. And I'd had a friend during my time at university who had a golden dragon speaking to him for you know, a number of months, and you know, he was a bit crazy and you know, diagnosed with bipolar at the time, but he was having some very profound lessons from that dragon, which I'm sure he has.
Yes, they are really conscious.
Yeah. And I'm sure he's gone on to integrate a lot of that perhaps his mind was struggling as that interaction was breaking through. And I've certainly had interactions with dragons during drinking ayahuasca as well. So they've made their presence known when my mind has got out of the way.
It reminds me of one time I was up in Korea at one of the temples. I think it was Magoksa, and it was during the summertime. In summertime, it's very rainy, so we're all in the main hall, and we're all doing these standing qigong exercises and breathing, and it's silent, but they give cues by a flute to move to the next position, and you put your hands on the different organ and stuff. Anyway, we were going through these different postures, and at one moment, all of a sudden, it's designed, if you know the 5-element system, it's designed to bring it back into harmony. And when the 5-element or 12 organs in the body are no longer in opposition to each other, but moving in constructive cycle, then all of a sudden there's this great harmony, and the great harmony in the body creates a great lens. Well, I was standing up, mind you, fully present in the body, but at the same moment, I'm up on top of my roof here in Arizona, and I'm putting in solar panels. At the same time, I'm getting on a bus in Seoul, Korea, And at the same time, I'm sitting with the group of people having lunch or dinner. And there was one other thing. Anyway, all of that happened, but 2 years down the road.
Wow.
So the movement of consciousness as it moves into more understanding and more confidence and peace, simultaneity starts to come up. And so you can have these experiences as you experience doing horse dance. And horse dance is one of the best ways to move out of the mind, out of the emotions, and into the consciousness.
Yeah, it's quite profound having memories that come from the future and not just the past, hey? I wanted to ask you about just when we were talking about those dragons a moment ago, reminded me of one of numerous synchronicities that I'd had, but after having this guidance during an ayahuasca journey with a dragon, the next day I dropped one of the girls off to the airport, and then I parked next to a car that had the number plate dragon, and I was like, there's the synchronicity, of course, it's making itself very obvious.
Validating.
Yeah, totally. And synchronicity has been a guiding force for me, and it feels like when my higher self is very much online, like that's what's affirming and guiding my actions, and I wanted to ask you about experiences with synchronicity and how you fit them into your model of the world and relate to them.
Well, I think the important element is it's almost like the ideology of swimming with dolphins. When I was in Hawaii, and I lived there for, I think, 7 years, and we used to go out swimming with the dolphins. But when we first started going out with the dolphins, I noticed, I really wanted to go swim with the dolphins, so I was after them, right? And they would always be far ahead. They would always swim way away. So you got to the point where you were exhausted. And when you were exhausted, you gave up on the idea of ever reaching them. And then they would come around you. So bing! You suddenly begin to realize when you're okay with and okay without, then they would come around. And we learned then that we are just as important. If we're giving our power away to only to them, then we're forfeiting a part of the equation. It was very important to stay centered in yourself and value yourself in the equation. And so when I learned that, I applied that even with the contact work. So all the experiences, in fact, I used to get in trouble because sometimes I would put all my focus in opening my heart and mind up as wide as I could in the contact setting, so that my feeling range would be sensitive enough to pick up any nuance entering into our area. And because I put that much focus on it, it appeared that I wasn't paying attention to all the drama that's going on. Sometimes safety of the group is important. So we, like on one occasion, we heard gunshots nearby, and I was asked to do something about the gunshots, but they were way away. I'm going, we're fine. I could sense we're fine, So I said, well, we're fine, and I went back to focusing on just maintaining that full awareness and presence in the vulnerability of the heart and totally surrendered to that. And that's when the Pleiadians showed up and gave the experience of the understanding of the sugar syndrome. But I had so many experiences like that I learned quickly that I tried to do a lot of the early on in my pursuit, my spiritual path. I tried to do a lot of the practices of opening up the third eye and all that, and it never worked. I tried really, really hard, but I found that when I would get vulnerable and go deep into the surrender, into that vulnerability, then I could see. And so it just opened up the capacities, and I have so many experiences. In fact, Lyssa calls me her eyes and ears for the other dimensions when we're doing the contact work. But there's been so many different experiences, but spontaneity and not having a rigid structure. That it's okay to have a structure, a basic outline, but you also got to leave the other part open inside you, because the unstructured spirituality is more connected to the inner child and more connected to the feminine side of us. The structured spirituality, and there's a lot of good things about the structured spirituality, but that's attributed to more the masculine and the adult part of ourselves. So when these two can work in harmony with each other, then it opens the bridge work for the whole quantum spectrum to present itself. So spontaneity, we're much more capable of spontaneity when we're okay being inner child or adult, ordinary or extraordinary. We're not demanding anything, but we're present. We're just present in that center, embracing, one arm around the inner child, one arm around the masculine or feminine, depending on what we are, what we naturally gravitate to. But if you take the XYZ axis, so you have X and Y, and then Z is, of course, here, but on each of them, there's the duality. So inner child and adult are one of those axes, and masculine and feminine are one of those axes, and then higher self and lower self. But they all, if you go to the center point, the seventh direction, if you allow them to all come together, then you are in the most optimum state for the what do you call it? The quantum to give an experience.
On that subject that you mentioned about the interactions with dolphins, because it was a large part of the second training that we did with you, the Seed of Life 2 training. And, I had profound experiences interacting with those dolphins. And I was also telling a girlfriend of mine yesterday who is just about to be flown over to Mexico by another friend, to Tulum, to stay in Tulum. And so we were mapping some of her places to go and visit, like Chichen Itza, but also there's a place called Xel-Ha. I don't know if you've heard of it, just near
Xel-Ha, yes. Yeah,
near Tulum. And I went there several weeks after we did that training and swam with some dolphins again at Xel-Ha, and there was a baby dolphin. It was only about this big, and it was amazing, it's so quick and playful. But I spent about an hour swimming with the dolphins, and then, Xel-Ha is a big natural river inlet off the coast. And for the next 7 or 8 hours, I just snorkeled all day long. And I came out and saw a photo of myself with these dolphins that a photographer had taken that you could purchase at the end of the day, and I just burst into tears seeing myself with this dolphin. And I realized that I'd been in a state of unity consciousness all day long, being in the water with the dolphins, the same water, swimming around, and had just been so present and so in that experience of my inner child's curiosity of just playing and exploring, you know. And then it was like, oh no, now I've got to go back to the humans. Yeah. And, you know, I guess the thing that I was thinking about exploring with you before talking was around this, how you got involved with working with dolphins and how that informed the extraterrestrial or interdimensional contact work that sort of was fused with that, I guess.
Oh, wow. Okay, well, I was working as an archaeologist in Hawaii. And during that time, I was also part of a women's group, a women's spiritual group. And uh, on one occasion, the group proposed that we go to Makua Bay on Oahu to go swim with the wild dolphins. And one of the gals in there, she had a fear of water. So at that time, I was a rescue diver and also a archaeologist, underwater archaeologist. So I told her, I'll swim next to you. I'll take care of you. You know, well, let's go out there and try to have, you know. So when we went out there, the dolphins were all jumping and spinning, and there was so much joy. I watched that girl, and she just tore off, you know, her external clothes down to her bathing suit, and then she grabbed a boogie board and she went out in that water like she knew, she had no fear and she knew exactly how to swim. So the joy was just phenomenal, and it helped her completely get over her fear of the water. And well, we started swimming with them for a while, for quite a number of occasions, and all of a sudden we started noticing that they would contact us early in the morning while we were sleeping. They would wake us up. They would come in holographically, swim through you, and they would be chattering up a storm where you couldn't sleep. And it was so engaging that you know, you were like, okay, what do you want? What do you want? And they would send you a picture of the shoreline of where they would be. And so we would go out there, and sure enough, they would be right where we were there. So as we started swimming with them, there was one occasion where I was swimming with them, and all of a sudden, one of them started coming at me really fast. And it looked like he was going to run into me, but he made a 90-degree angle just like that at the last second. And that really got my attention. And he started communicating to me, and he started sharing with me. I was getting this telepathy. He was saying that if you breathed the energy from his heart into mine, amplified it, and send it back to him within the cadence of the breath, and we do this for a while, then we could enjoy the amplification of the energy. So I did. And we were ping-ponging it through the breath back and forth. And all of a sudden, you just started feeling like your aura was getting brighter and brighter. And then at one point, he said, all right, there's going to be a door in my heart. You're going to see it. I'm going to be able to see the door in your heart. When I say, go through the doorway, and I'm going to go through the doorway in your heart. So, you know, we're ping-ponging, and then, which is kind of like in Hindu, Kapalabhati breathing, fire breathing, skull fire breathing. Anyway, so at one point he said, all right, now go through the door. So I went through the door in his heart, and you felt like you were in the cosmos, and you were every star, every planet, every being, every, you know, atom. You were just everywhere, superposition.
Yeah.
And that's the best description of the physics term superposition that I've ever experienced. And the dolphin said, that we dolphins do this all the time with each other. So we're not trapped here. We're constantly moving through the cosmos, whatever planet we want. And we also do this between whales and dolphins. And it has been our dream for a long time that one day we could share this with human beings, that we can go through each other's heart and the whole universe expands. I went, wow. So that kept me enthralled for a long time. And actually, in the quantum navigation, introduction to quantum navigation, I actually do that as a method of having people ignite into their true self, being everywhere all at once.
Yeah. You know, it's reminding me of when we were doing that work and that fire breath in the pool and that exercise, you know, merging with these dolphins. You know, I had huffed and puffed and blown the house down for
literally.
Yeah, for about an hour, you know, and and again, I'm huffing, and we're in those life jackets floating, you know, and I'm trying to merge with these dolphins, and you know, my mind was perhaps too strong, but eventually I decided that I wanted to sing to these dolphins, to make sounds to them, you know, and I just spontaneously allowed myself to do that and lay back in this life vest, and then had that type of experience that you're talking about, of kind of going out into the cosmos and merging with star systems and whatnot. And I remember when Lyssa called us all back, I was laughing so much, like in this state of joy, that I was literally, as I was coming back into my body, thinking, oh shit, I'm going to have to get somebody to drag me out of the pool. Like I can't operate here. And I kind of flapped my way back to the side of the pool and got out still laughing on the side of the pool. And again, it's another experience of my ego being way too strong. And then I have that experience of surrender and playfulness and whatnot. And then it all just becomes hysterical laughter.
Exactly. Well, having that experience with the dolphins there, we had finished a Seed of Life 1 in Mexico. And so we, Lyssa and Yvette, who was the head of the Latin America Division Office for the Flower of Life, we all went to Ixtapa, and we were at a hotel that was right next to the dolphinarium. So we thought, hey, let's go swim with the dolphins. So we did, and then we got to talking to the manager, and the manager was curious because he could feel our energy, and he says, what do you guys do? So we finally broke down and told him, you know, about the Flower of Life and, you know, about meditation and all that. And he goes, oh my God, I've been looking for a group to work with my dolphins that can go in and meditate with the dolphins and also check them out to see how they're doing physiologically. Can you guys do that? I said, yeah, sure, no problem. So we created a course, which was the Seed of Life 2. And I also created I took a graphic of a dolphin that had a cutaway so you could see all the organs. And from the organs, I could then place all of the chakras on there, and from that developed a methodology where we could merge through utilizing the geometry in meditation to merge with the geometry of the dolphins. Although the dolphins, they like to work on the octahedral level and much higher. They start at the octahedral level, whereas we were starting on the star tetrahedral level, but and that led to much more dramatic form of the meditation.
You know, another another memory that I'm having as we talk about that particular workshop was that you know, as there's a few occasions where we were in the pool with the dolphins and doing the breathing and attempting to merge with them, and I was having all these visions and stuff, but I was having this vision of riding this huge turtle across the cosmos, and of course my mind wants to kick in and go, this is stupid. This is nonsense. You're supposed to be merging with
Proof
dolphins.
you're a lunatic.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm thinking, yeah, I'm supposed to be merging with dolphins. And then, of course, at the end of that workshop, you guys came out and said to us, oh, we've got this, special thing that we've been building up to this week, which was they had a turtle breeding program that was happening underneath the dolphinarium, and that we were all going to get these baby turtles and release them into the ocean that night. And I was like, of course, that's why I've been riding this huge cosmic turtle for the last week.
All the pieces start fitting together in that mix of extraordinary, ordinary.
Yeah.
And it's all a big joke.
You mentioned the dolphin swimming up to you very quickly. I had an experience of that. You'd be familiar with Scott Taylor? I think it's Scott Taylor's work.
No.
God, I think that's his name. I've got one of his books here. He was friends with Drumvello. I'm pretty sure it's Scott Taylor. I could have the name wrong, but yeah, he was friends with Drumvello like back, very early in the piece, and he was doing lots of work with dolphins. What's the name of his book? Something in the sea. Anyway, I went and did some workshops with him in a dolphinarium in Australia. And as soon as I got into the pool, one of these dolphins came flying from the end of the pool as quick as it could, and it was like it put the brakes on, and it hit here. Its nose was right in front of my third eye, and it just blasted me with sound. And then just took off, and it was like it had taken this scan of me, And again, the other experiences were very similar to what you were talking about in the dreamscape of interacting, prior to getting in the pool with these dolphins, of them interacting on that level.
Wow.
Yeah.
During, I think it was 2006. I was putting on a Flower of Life facilitator training in Moscow, and some of the individuals there, after one of the sessions in the evening, they wanted to take us to the dolphinarium. Well, of course, said yes. So here in Moscow, we went to the dolphinarium. Well, in the pool, they not only had dolphins, but they had belugas. They had 2 belugas in the pool. And so we were playing with them, and they let you just completely play all you want with, touch, play, whatever. So anyway, I'm swimming around, and all of a sudden, I hear this voice. I'm like, what? And it's the beluga. And she's going, hug me. And I go, what? Are you serious? And she comes up right next to me and stops. She goes, hug me. I'm like, okay. So I hugged her, and we went on this ride, and she went down in the water. And then, at one point, I'm like, started to worry. I go, I wonder if she knows I need air. And all of a sudden she went up. So I got some air, and then we went back down, and we were just swimming together for a while, and I was like, oh my God, this is just amazing. And then I felt like, okay, I can't be in imposition, obviously I must be a drag on her. So, okay, I've had my fun. Thank you very much. I said to her from my heart, and I started swimming to the ladder, and all of a sudden she comes by and she goes, I'm not done yet. So she had me hug her again. So I just played with her for the longest time. And so anyway, having that no expectation really opened the window and the communication. Since I had communication with fish, with the earlier dolphins, it also translates to other beings. So.
Yeah. Yeah, well, as I said, that the contact work that we did, how I described it was like child's play, because the experiences that I had with dolphins and other human beings was really invoked that inner child aspect and that connection to the imagination and curiosity and playfulness, and then you realize when you just stay with what your experience of something is, rather than go into judgment or storytelling about it, that you actually have these profound experiences that you might not notice how profound they are until you reflect on them afterwards, how non-ordinary they are.
Yeah. I think one of the elements that really makes these experiences of the extraordinary so deep is that there's a profound sense of non-judgment, just a profound okayness. And we're supposed to be togetherness of feeling. So that I feel like there's missing by, the rainbow spectrum incorporates all these different personalities, all these different lineages, all these different beings. And we get more healthy when we're open to all of that and we allow that back in.
Yeah, I was reading, it's a beautiful opening on your website about your work, your current work, the quantum navigation work. The way that we have this quantum navigator, as you call it, or the big self that understands from the bird's eye perspective this complete picture of all our existences, and how that it speaks to us through various tools of metaphor and synchronicity and emotional resonance, nudging us towards that awakening process, and it's amazing how at times, it can communicate to us in all of these various ways. Sometimes it comes through as a very clear voice, like through the auditory canal, or sometimes it's showing you visions or synchronicities or metaphor or symbols and whatnot, but it seems to make itself known.
Yes. I feel that that little particle at the very center of the heart, the singularity, is infinitely small, but it's infinitely profound. And that singularity, its job is to take what is structured and to break it down back into energy. And so it knows any entanglement that we have, and it tries to communicate and reflect to us the entanglement we have so that we can understand it at the level that we're working. Sometimes it's ahead of us, so it takes a little focus and determination to unravel the entanglement, but it constantly is working with these types of reflections and projections to try to show to us the entanglement. And when we take the charge off of it, the story off of it, it becomes so much easier for us to integrate and disentangle the entanglement and return that portion of ourself back to superposition. Because that's its job, is it wants to take what's entangled and return it back to that superposition quality, ordinary to extraordinary.
Yeah, as you're speaking about that, it's reminding me of the many amazing movies over recent years that have done such a fantastic job of depicting some of these things. Obviously, Interstellar comes to mind,
Yes.
Yes.
That's one of the best. Seeing that probability, the cube of probability. Oh, that is masterful.
Yeah. And of course, my other favorite has always been based on Carl Sagan's work, Contact, with Jodie Foster.
Oh, yeah,
Matthew
absolutely. That, yes.
Yeah.
Tiny steps.
Yeah, tiny steps. Amazing the sacred geometry that they incorporated into it too. You would have noticed the dodecahedron in the time machine that they built. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then at the center, they went through the quantum singularity, which opens to all quantum. And there was 18 hours.
Yep.
18 hours of static.
Uh,
Yeah, that was brilliant. And the
and
way uh, depicted the quantum as being that jelly-like fluid, that was just profound.
well, you mentioned that the word fluid just as I was reading something, another question that I was going to ask you, which was, I guess I was asking based on your Taoist training. Some other friends of mine, have done a bunch of Taoist training previously, and there was a concept around spirit living within the cerebrospinal fluid and the fascia network within the body. And I was wondering whether you'd ever come across that concept before, or how those components within the physical body relate to our capacity to embody spirit or a higher self or whatnot. Have you ever come across that?
Well, in so much of a different context, but along the same lines, and that is the masters observed that babies, as an example, they're coming straight from spirit, so they're not in any gym working out the muscles. Yet they could, if you put your finger in their grip, it's very hard to get your your finger out of their grip. But also having a baby lay down in the child's pose where the arms and legs are up, and they can stay in that for hours. But if we were to lay on our back and put our arms and legs in the air, we can do it maybe 5 minutes, and then we start trembling and stuff. And they attribute that to all the stresses, pains, and so on, traumas we carry and place within the channels and the fascia and the joints in our arms and limbs and arms and legs. And as they build up, you lose the ability, you even lose, flexibility, because there's so much stresses. But if you do the hard postures, once again, you're pushing the chi through the natural energy meridians and the channels of the arms and legs, and it removes those blockages. And over time, you're able to hold those positions for hours on end. And today I still practice the horse dance because it's so good. But the natural channel, the fluid then that's in there, the chi flows like quantum fluid. Chi is the master integrator of mind, body, and spirit. And so their perspective on it is, as we get that chi moving through our body again, we can remove the blockages and open these channels up and experience a lot of these beautiful states. Ordinary and extraordinary become one and the same.
Yeah. I was wondering, I've asked a bunch of questions, but was there anything coming into this talk that was really on the forefront of your mind that you wanted to talk about?
I was completely open. I didn't know what you wanted to talk about, so I was like, okay, well, we'll just go with the flow, and I'll be happy with whatever comes up.
Yeah, beautiful.
But
Yeah,
I really appreciate what you're providing. I see. In my past, I've did some reading on some of the authors that you've mentioned, the Joseph Campbell and such, and many others that you've listed. And one thing that I really appreciate about the approach that you're taking is that you're making this so easy to assimilate, easy to digest, easy because of who you are and how you present as a story, but you also did a lot of your own research. And by having both of those together, it provides a very solid groundwork to take the nature of this topic. I have a different way that I'm working, so I appreciate the way that you're bringing this with all of your stories, because it helps the individuals tie in to some similarities. And you expand upon them.
Yeah.
Profoundly. So I'm very appreciative of it.
Cool. Yeah, well, thank you for that feedback. I guess it's I'm trying to make it relatable for people, like, because many people do have these experiences with, if we want to call it, non-ordinary reality, and they may not have people around them within their family system or whatnot, or support network, mentors, that can guide them to understand, that there's this bleed through from their higher self, their quantum navigator, that's essentially, trying to break down that programming of their cultural identity, that they've had to adopt to survive in this reality, but there is a much bigger, more expanded aspect of themselves that they get in touch with, and I think it's helpful to share these stories of, what I might refer to as shamanic madness sometimes, when your mind is really trying to wrestle with experiences that you've had with the non-ordinary and or the sacred and the profane, and there have been, as I said, many people that have influenced my own comprehension and understanding of those, both via written material and experientially, and you being one of those, and you're somebody that I wanted other people to be exposed to, and be exposed to the body of work that you've had a lifetime of assembling and putting together, and they'd be very fortunate to see you talk on this presentation, and if they had the opportunity to come and do some work with you at some stage. You're doing your sacred site tours and whatnot at the moment as part of all that work.
Yes. Interestingly, I've been working with a Navajo medicine man, and actually his great-grandfather I met in spirit like 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Now when we met, we recognize each other. So it's just phenomenal, the extraordinary and ordinary. One thing that I wanted to say, that in the quantum navigation, the introduction to quantum navigation, I started out by saying that, and I forget the author who states it, but you can't, he said, you can't change a person until that person is ready to see themselves differently. And so the nature of the work that you're providing is assisting with individuals ready to begin to change from the history, identity, and personality that's all been from the unconscious state, and reframe it to this much larger perspective. So I really appreciate what you're doing.
There's some quote that I forget the author, but I think I put it on my website that says, until you're ready, are you ready to be erased, sponged out, dipped into oblivion, made nothing, until you are, you'll never really change.
I like that. That's right. You gotta unlearn what you've learned, as Yoda says. There's a bigger part that's coming through.
It's true. And for those people listening to this, where can they find you? I know you've got a YouTube channel and the Seed of Life Institute and School. Where can they get in touch with?
www.quantumnavigation.net. That's my personal website. You can find me there, and all the listings for the Southwest Journeys, which we're doing one at the end of April for, I think, 13 or 14 days. And we go on to all these different power spots and wind up on the Navajo reservation, do Sweat Lodge and work with them for a little bit. But it's quite an amazing experience. And anyway, all those are up on that. And I continue to do the Storm Wisdom quantum navigation evening sessions. That's coming up in April. And I make those available up on the website too. So there's 2 hours of video.
Okay, that's like a link to the YouTube channel, is it?
Yes, yeah. It's all up on that website, quantumnavigation.net.
And those take place physically in Phoenix, Arizona?
That's correct. That's Storm Wisdom Center.
Cool. Awesome, man. Well, we've nearly done an hour and a half, and we've covered some good territory. Hopefully people will be able to relate to our sense of humor talking about these experiences. And yeah, it's been a real pleasure, man. We should do it again. I'll come back to you with a bunch of other questions and things that we can explore.
Hey, if I can help out, I'd certainly enjoy it anytime.
Yeah, beautiful.
Really good to see you again, Carlos, and really good to
too,
connect.
man. Yeah, you make my heart
Quite
smile.
a special being. I've always admired you.
Thanks, likewise, brother. Okay, my man. Nanu. Ciao.